Hello, everybody. Scott Stevens here as we venture off into the world of weather for another night. Let's see if we can't tilt that screen up just a little bit and angle it, because there's not a camera guy except for this character right here. And not that he can't do it because he actually enjoys doing it. Going to make some few changes because we're kind of looking at this game long term, and we're going to move these shows that have been on my personal page. Granted, that's where the audience is right now, but I'm hoping you guys will come on over here to this other page, Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life, where we've got a group set up, and there's some other projects that we've got a team participating with, and those will enable us to engage a broader variety of topics so that I can, with great anticipation and excitement, move from doing just weather. Even when I was back at the last station I was at KPVI in Pocatello, Idaho, I loved economics, and I've liked economics since I was a kid. I don't know why, but numbers and economics and geophysical matters, just all of it just fascinated me. And so this move off this channel, not that it couldn't happen here, but we'll certainly share these shows there. We'll be able to broach some broader topics, have some guests, and instead of this being what has been for 20 years a one-man show, because once I left television, I was a one-man show, although I did have people kind of come into my orbit time and again. Ultimately, it was just me doing the work, and with this, I kind of broaden the capabilities, resources, expertise that I'll have available to me, and that alone certainly excites me. All right, change the StreamYard. Yes, I can see a Vicky high over there, and Stock Jockey, Chemtrail Free. Yes, that'll be the day. That business is going to happen. So I'm going to pop over here. We'll share the screen, and this is the announcement that I had up on my Facebook page. That's where it's going to be from now on. And once they're broadcast, we'll kind of share them back over, or at least reference them, or cut little snippets out and share those back with the group. We'll just see how this all plays out. All right, I kind of want to start with the tweets today, and we I love astronomy. My dad or the parents got me a telescope when I was maybe 12 years old. A little cheap thing from Sears, a little refractor with a shaky tripod. Once you get one of those scopes, you realize how integral the tripod is of a telescope. You think, oh, how big a lens is, but no, the tripod is critical, because if you don't have whatever lens or optics you have on a tripod and the tripod's shaky, the optics are worthless. You got to have a great tripod. Complete digression. I loved astronomy. So we're to that time of year where the sun kind of tends to, let's just say, skim the northern horizon for a little bit longer than it would in the winter, when it just would set straight, almost straight down. But in the summer, there's a little more of an angle, a slope, and hence why the northern latitudes have exceedingly long twilights and dawns, because that sun is greater than 18 degrees below the horizon. Whereas on the equator, when the sun sets, it sets hard, and we move into darkness very, very quickly. So we tend to get a lot of satellites visible in the evening sky. In the northwestern sky right now, Venus is spending its last week to 10 days with us before it passes, not directly in front of the sun. It's called an inferior conjunction, but that happens on June 3rd. So that bright beacon Venus that has been in the western sky for 9 months now will be gone by the 1st of June. So what we're seeing, and what may end up playing a big part of tropical, or at least the early part of tropical season for the Atlantic, is a developing El Nino, and also what they call a Central American monsoon gyrate. And that would tend to begin to ignite the flow of the easterlies across the Caribbean, through the Gulf of Mexico, and then drawing that moisture into the southwestern United States. That would be kind of an exciting thing to start to begin, since the monsoon last summer was such a dud. Once you got north of the Rio Grande and into the western states. I know this is the 200 millibar level, and it doesn't really talk about that, but it nevertheless illustrates rather clearly that we'll have that hanging out across Mexico. And once that begins early in the season, along with the developing La Nina, the Atlantic could be active. And since we've already had Arthur, which is now dissipating to the east, the Atlantic, we might be looking for kind of a festive hurricane season. So something you don't see every every day is the ITCZ, or Intertropical Convergence Zone Breaking Down, explicitly shown in the near term, which is just the 7-day average forecast fields by both the European and then the Canadian forecast system weeklies in early June over the Eastern Pacific. This is one of the strongest long-range signals we've seen, and this would begin to ignite that hurricane, or the hurricane season for the far eastern Pacific. So we see those storms developing, south of Acapulco, off of Nicaragua, and then they begin to curve up and inland. And if they're lucky enough or unlucky enough, depending on if you like to experience those things, could curve into the Baja. All right, vitamin D. You can see by my color, I do enjoy the sunshine. I love getting out there. I'm at high elevation in Colorado, so it does not take a lot of sunshine before this guy turns pink or red, and then I can turn pale very, very quickly if I don't get out there rather regularly. So vitamin D is critical. We have, for almost 2 generations now, lathered up on sunscreen, and that does not come without its own set of risks. And that topic probably is well worthy of your investigation on your own. Big deep low. Now we are looking at what they call cutoff season, where you see the jet stream, instead of meandering gently from west to east, we're getting the larger cutoffs. This happens in spring and fall. And we end up with these larger storms that disconnect from the jet stream and then begin to wander to the south. And when that happens, we can have extended periods of cool weather. And that is exactly what the Ohio, Tennessee, and upper Mississippi River valleys have been doing lately. All right, 2 other things that we're looking at is the development of the La Nina, and then the potential for the Indian Ocean dipole, which is partially, if not largely, responsible for the drought in Australia last year. And if we're at the flip side of this, then we'd be anticipating a much wetter season for Australia as we move to the Northern Hemisphere summer. And then in a celebration of new Dr. Ted Fujita, that airs tonight on PBS. And Fujita gave us the tornado scale, the F1, the F0, the F3, 4, and 5. Now we have enhanced that and changed the Fujita scale to EF4, EF5, and so forth. So the enhanced scale. So that has been changed a little bit. That page may not load up, so we're not going to go look at the earthquakes that have been continuing through Tonopah, Nebraska, and some brand new ones showing up over the Northern California coast. And I've said for the past week or so, something's up out west. I don't want to be, well, I can't say that I don't want to be surprised, because I don't want to say we don't want that to happen, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and we have to go through it. But the potential for a large event off the west coast of the U.S. and in that fire continues to climb by the day. It's been hot in Texas, straight up hot in Texas. The heat's returned to Florida, as well as Arthur has moved away. And then you can see, as we move into the latter part of May, that it remains cool over the breadbasket of America, and the heat with some southerly winds out ahead of this other deep low, which is in the west, keeping the Mountain West on the cold side. So that deep low out west, right in through here, with the rains into Idaho, Oregon, Nevada, Utah, and now into the Front Range of Colorado, and continuing showers to come in off the cold North Pacific, impinging on the Pacific Northwest, and then that cool air still pushing through California. And here's that deep low still wandering through the middle part of the nation. And then Arthur, now pressed out to sea, not really a thing to reckon with. And even in the last part of these frames, the lower circulation is still present, but the strong showers and thunderstorms have been pushed away. The other thing of concern with this big beast has been all the rain. And when you've had a relatively wet winter and spring thus far, and you've got the Great Lakes where they're nearly at or close to record high pools, then you throw 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches of rain into this region. Those rivers come up to streamful or into minor flood conditions, and they head to the lakes. And we're just kind of getting into the wetter part of the year here. So these Great Lakes states that have been, and it was all climate change bringing us, record low lake levels and the drought ongoing. It's amazing what's happened in the last 5, 6, 7 years, that we've had so much water through eastern Canada, through Quebec, Ontario, even into the northern prairie provinces of Canada, but through Great Lakes primarily, that we are dealing with those lakes at record levels. Say that twice, Scott. All right, there's the showers out west, nothing severe. Looks like we've got some severe thunderstorms beginning to break out in West Texas and the Texas Panhandle, and also in southeastern Colorado. These are places that are dry. They're dry. I'll pop over here and see if this loads. Yes, Here we are. We've had the extreme drought: Northern California, Southern Oregon, interior Oregon, and then Southern Colorado, eastern Kansas, and then some of those higher plains in Texas. So these rains are welcome rains. They may have a little severe weather in them. There might be some hail, but nonetheless, on the net, this is a good event to happen. And of course, where we've got the showers and thunderstorms, lightning accompanies it. So let's come back here, rewind and look at the national forecast chart with unsettled conditions in the end of the west, severe weather where we have the red hashed conditions over in the southeastern United States, and then another surge of cool air trying to come down from Alberta and Saskatchewan into Montana. So surprisingly cool. And even where we have the blue hashed, we are looking for some of these higher elevations to continue to pick up a little high elevation snow. So these snow levels, or the snow water stuck in these mountains, has been kind of sparse. And so this continuation of the cool weather to do two things: one, bring additional precipitation, and number two, slow the melting of the snow. The longer, the slower that comes out, the more seeps into the soils. And that's just all good news all the way around. So let's go to the QPF, where we are seeing the precip forecast, and it's kind of wet. It's wet in the southeastern states out day 4, still into the northern Rockies. A bit of a breakout over the west come day 5, but then we begin to see the high plains picking up that moisture. We'll just go to the full 1 to 7 day total for the next week. Again, high plains of Texas. So this refills their ponds, gets the vegetation, a good healthy soaking as we head into the peak of the growing season, all the way through the Central Plains states, and then even into the Carolinas, where last summer at this time they were straight up dry. So kind of looks like we're getting what we need. We still have that typhoon going on. Let me pop back here, see if we can get into that. If that happened, yeah, into the Bay of Bengal, the storm beginning to weaken somewhat, but still looking for 10 to 15 foot storm surges, or 3 to 5 meters into the western portions of the Bay of Bengal over the next little while. And then Arthur is done. Arthur is done as he turns extratropical. So that's kind of the big news. Other places that were dealing with flooding was Somalia, and then Eastern Africa getting those extra rains. And that's kind of a blessing and a curse, because they had such a swarm of locusts back January and February after the last round of rains. And so we may be looking at a reignition of that in the short term. All right, everybody, we have made the change over to Metadigm Digital and over to the group of Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life. And from there, we will launch off into the future. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock Mountain, I'll have Smart Perspectives. We'll begin to, or I'll begin to address some of these, let's just say, topics that we kind of think about, but don't really have the friends, or a lot of us don't have the friends to even discuss some of these more interesting topics, because we can either talk about people and gossip, we can talk about world events, and we do that almost all the time, or we can talk about ideas. We can talk about potentials. We can talk about ideals and how we change ourselves. And ultimately, those around us is about as far as any of our reaches individually can go. So on this medium, as we sit, radio, television, and now internet, and not having to deal with FCC licenses for this and that, we have the potential to reach a far greater number of people. And that, to me, is exciting. All right, everybody, Scott Stevens here. And as we head on into the evening in the States and morning into the Eastern Pacific, hey, just keep looking up.